back to my channel, and today I'm going to be going through week 2 of our programming in C++ series. In this video I'm going to go hands-on with one of the most fundamental parts of C++ or programming in general. That's the data types and declarations and initialization. So by the end of this video tutorial, you not only understand what each type means, but then understand how you can apply each type in programming journey. Alright, so let's dive in. As you can see, already in my IDE, that's code blocks, and we are continuing from where we ended. Right, in our last video we worked on week 1, so if you haven't seen that, you can check the playlist and then check out the week 1 video. So before anything, let's go ahead and create a new project. So the same process as we did in the previous video. I'm going to name this week 2. Alright, so week 2, and as usual, code blocks will generate the default line of code for you. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is what we call data type. Now, when we say data type, they are how we tell the computer what kind of data we are working with, right? For example, numbers, letters, true or false values, and many others. So basically in C++ we have fundamental types like int, which is short for integer. We have float, we have double. They are all decimals, right? Float and double are decimals. And we have char, which is short for character, and then string, right? These are just the basic data types. We have more advanced types which we'll touch on later. Alright, so yeah, so the data types we have, let me comment them. So commenting is simply it serves as like indicators or reminders right in your code. So when you type them, you either use this notation or you use double slash, right? Then you type whatever you want. Whatever you type in between this will not be run by the computer, right? So I'm going to be making notes using comments. So I said the types of data, or the data types we have int, which stands for whole numbers or integers. We have float for decimal numbers. We have char for single characters, right? And we have bool, which is short for boolean. So they just have two values, true or false. And then we have string, which is sequences of characters. Alright, so I'm going to be talking about them as we move on. Now, next thing we're talking about is integers and then floating point types, right? So, since this is a practical video, let's move on and then explain using practicals. So, have int of each, have int of each, float height 5.9. I'll explain whatever I'm doing subsequently. Double width 70.12345. Yeah, then see out each. Um, Alright, so we're going to be talking about integers and then floating point types. So you know that integers in mathematics are numbers, right? Negative and then positive numbers. Good. But then in C++, right, integers are broken down into two types. We have the signed integer and then the unsigned integer, where the signed integer encompasses or it contains the set of negative numbers and then positive numbers, right? And then the unsigned just takes positive numbers, so from 0 to 2 exponents 33 or 32 numbers, right? So by default the int data type is basically the signed data type, meaning it can take negative numbers and then positive numbers. Alright, so this I've done here is what we call variable initialization, right? So I'll talk more about that, but then for now let's focus on integer and then floating point type. So I've spoken about integers. You can see over here int and age, and then I give it a value of 20. 20 is an integer, right? Now for floating point types we have float and then double. The two of them are all talking about decimal numbers, but then the difference is that float is for single precision, right? That is, it can take let's say one decimal place for float, right? So and then double can take more, right? Float can't just take only one, but then it has a limit compared to double. So we see float is single precision and then double is double precision, right? Simply means that double can take more decimal places compared to float, right? Float can take up to about 4 or 5 decimal places, yeah, but then double can take more, right? So yeah, and then over here we spoke about the cout in the previous video. So over here I'm just displaying the variables. When I run them, it's going to show me the numbers in the decimals assigned to the variables instead of the variables themselves or the text themselves over here. What I'm saying is that instead of we going to be seeing age, we'll see 20 instead of age. Same applies for height and then for weight. Okay, so that's it for integers and floating point types. Moving on, talking about boolean and then character types. So I mentioned that boolean booleans are true or false values. They are just two values, right? And they are very useful in conditions. Okay, whereas characters store just single letters or symbols and then are written in single quotes. So this is what I mean. No, to declare a boolean, we do bool, then the name of the variable. So it's student is equal to then type true, right? Then the character, let's say grade, is equal to, we use single quotation, so a, right? Then when I display them, um, students, grade, right? So yeah, I'm going to be running them, but before that, I'd like us to know that the true or false are represented by numbers. That's one and zero, and one means true and then zero means false. So let's keep that in our heads when we run this. Okay, it says I have an error here. Let's figure out what the error is. Okay, so this is what the error is. Instead of two less than signs, I typed one. So I've corrected it. Now let's run it. Alright, so as you can see over here is this part that is running. So it says age is age, and then what is age? 20. So 20, height 5.9, weight this. Alright, and then a student, that's the boolean. Realize that over here type true, but then it's displaying one. And remember I mentioned that one is representing true, and then when it's false it's going to be zero, and the grade a. Alright, now let's explore the other data types. Strings and then the void types, right? So strings, or a string is not a basic type, but it's widely used. It holds a group of characters, whereas void is usually, or is used mostly in functions to indicate no return types, right? We'll be looking at functions as we move on. Alright, so a string. Now, we said a string is like a sequence of characters, right? So a string can be anything. So far as whatever you are classifying as a string is in between the double quotation punctuation. So for strings, they use the double quotation. So Yeah. So we have string even, and then when we display it, so you realize that even when displaying, we put whatever we want to display in quotation mark before the variable. So yeah, that is what a string is. That is what a string is. Okay, let's run this again. Yeah, so you can see even. Alright, and I mentioned that string can contain any data type. That is, it can contain numbers, even characters. So far as it is in between the double quotation marks, then it's considered as a string. So I can type 1, 2, 3, 4 over here, and it's going to display everything within the double quotation mark. Okay. Good. So as you can see over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 4, 3. Without that type, it's never mind. Yeah. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is variable declaration and then initialization. Right. So I've already done that. I'm just going to highlight on them. So um, in variable declaration and then initialization, so they can be confusing at times, but then I'm going to tell you the difference. Right. So for variable declaration, it tells the compiler that a variable exists, right? And what type the data, what type of data it will be holding, right? So what we call variable declaration, this is what I mean. So int age. When I do this, I'm declaring a variable. So I'm telling the computer or the compiler that there is a variable that I'm creating, and then the type that it is going to be is an integer type, right? And you should know that anytime you create a variable in C++, the computer allocates a memory to it, right? We'll be looking at memory allocation and then pointers and references in the other videos that are to come. But then you should know that variable declaration, you just type your data type, then the identifier, right? The identifier is the name of the variable you're going to give it, and then you terminate it with your semicolon. So over here I'm declaring a variable named age, and then it is a type, or it is an integer type. No value is assigned yet. So for variable declaration, no value is assigned to it yet, right? And then it contains now data or undefined data. It's just like an empty box, right? And then for variable initialization, it means you giving a declared variable an initial value at the time of creation. So at the time of creation, that's when I created it. I initialized it by giving it a value. So over here is variable declaration, and then over here is variable initialization. So the difference is that for declaration, I don't assign any value at the start. I will come and assign it later. But then for the initialization, the moment I declare my variable, I give it a value. So that's the difference. variable when you've already declared it, right? So looking at this instance, we have int age. In order to add a value to it, I'm just going to type the variable name, that's age, and equate it to the number or the value, right? You don't have to bring the int again because you've already declared the variable, right? So you just have to type the variable, identify what the variable name, and then you assign your value. That's when you declare a variable. But then when you are initializing, the moment you type int age, you add your equal to then your value. Alright. Okay, so moving on. We are almost at the end of the video. I'm talking about scope of a variable. So the scope tells us where a variable can be accessed from, right? And then most variables have a local scope, and those variables are the variables inside the main int function. Right? So variables inside a function are referred to local scope variables. So we already know that this int main is the main function in C++. So all the variables that have initialized here and declared over here, they are all local scope variables. What it means is that if I go outside the main function and then I try to call the variable, I will get an error because it is not popular. Let me use the word popular. It's not popular. It's only popular in its local vicinity. It's only known in the main int function, right? And then any variable that is outside the main int function. So for instance, I do char number, remember character stay position progression there, right? This becomes a global right variable. Since it's outside the main function, it's outside, so it's popular, right? If I come and call it over here in this int main function, I'm not going to get any error because it's a global scope. It's known everywhere. So yeah, let's take note. So the difference between global and local scope is that for global, it's known everywhere in your code, but no matter where you call it, you are not going to get an error. But then for a local scope variable, it's only known in the function you have declared and initialized it in, right? Okay, so let's do a quick recap. Today we've learned the most common C++ data types and how to declare and initialize them. And then we've also learned about scopes and how to make use of your scopes and all that. Good. So in week 3 we'll cover what we call control structures. Right, so that's the if, else, switch, and then also do loops. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and then share with your classmates. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.